He thought he could bleed me dry, that I was just his personal, permanent ATM, even after I finally got the guts to end our marriage. He actually had the audacity to ask for spousal support. And I'm not talking about a modest, transitional amount. I'm talking about enough money to let him coast for the rest of his natural life, while I continued to work my tail off. All because he decided that his creative pursuits were more important than a steady income for the last 10 years of our lives together. The shock, the betrayal, it was like a punch to the gut, but it quickly morphed into a cold, hard resolve. I sat in that lawyer's office, listening to the legal precedent he was citing, and I just had one thought. You have no idea who you've messed with, darling. So, before I dive into the intricate, absolutely devastating revenge that followed, and trust me, it was a masterpiece of legal and financial precision, I need to know something from you right now. If you had spent 10 years supporting a man's delusion, sacrificing your own career growth for his pipe dreams, and then he tried to take half of your future on his way out the door, would you fight fire with an inferno? Tell me now, before you hear how I completely dismantled his world. This whole unbelievable mess started, as most disasters do, with what felt like a fairy tale. I met David in college. He was magnetic, charming, and had this air of bohemian artistry that completely captivated my younger, more sensible self. I was the pragmatic one, studying business, already plotting my path up the corporate ladder. He was the soulful artist, a writer and musician who truly believed he was on the cusp of his big break. We fell in love fast and hard, the kind of passionate, all-consuming love that makes you believe you can conquer the world together. The early years were glorious chaos. We lived in a tiny apartment, ate ramen, and spent our nights at dive bars, dreaming up our futures. I always knew his dream was important to him, and I genuinely supported it. When I landed my first real job, a demanding but well-paying position at a major tech firm, we made a conscious decision. I would focus on my career to provide stability, and he would focus intensely on his art. It was a partnership, or so I thought. For the first couple of years, it worked. My career took off with incredible speed. I was getting promoted every 18 months, my salary was climbing, and our lifestyle was improving dramatically. David was writing constantly. He was submitting manuscripts, playing gigs, and honestly, he was happy. But as time went on, the dynamic subtly shifted. His writing time started to look a lot like playing video games time. His networking gigs often ended up being a night out with friends that left him useless the next day. The rejection slips piled up, and instead of using them as fuel, he used them as an excuse to retreat further into what I now realize was a fantasy world. Meanwhile, my job became all-consuming. I was traveling, managing huge teams, and dealing with immense pressure. I was bringing in all the money, managing the household, and essentially living the life of a single, highly stressed breadwinner, all while cheering him on from the sidelines. I bought us our beautiful home, I paid for his expensive vintage guitar and the new recording equipment, and I funded his trips to writers' retreats, all with the expectation that he would eventually get his big break, or, at the very least, take some initiative and contribute to our life in a tangible way. The breaking point wasn't one big fight. It was 1,000 tiny, soul-crushing disappointments. It was the look in his eyes when I asked him to just get a part-time job, any job, to cover his own personal expenses. It was the fact that I had to book the appointments, remember his mother's birthday, and still be the one to clean the house after a grueling 40-hour workday. The ultimate wake-up call came when I was up for an executive vice president role, a 7 six-figure opportunity that would solidify our financial future forever. I was on the phone with my mentor, going over the presentation, when David sauntered into my home office, not to offer support or quiet the TV, but to complain that the new, organic coffee I bought didn't taste right, and could I please go out right now and get his preferred brand. I hung up the phone, looked at the man I had married, and saw a spoiled, entitled child who viewed my success not as our shared victory, but as his safety net and personal service provider. I realized with a sickening clarity that he wasn't my partner. He was my dependent, and I was utterly exhausted. That night, I started the divorce process. I kept it quiet, consulting the best family law attorney in the city, gathering all my financial documents meticulously. When I finally told David, his reaction wasn't sadness or regret. It was pure, unadulterated panic, quickly masked by anger. He didn't ask me to reconsider. He immediately demanded to know what he was entitled to. That's when I knew the gloves were off. He was going to try and take me for everything he could, and I decided then and there that I would not only stop him, but I would turn his own greed into his downfall. His lawyer, a slick, aggressive shark, immediately filed for maximum spousal support. The argument was based on the disparity of our incomes, the length of the marriage, and David's sacrifices in giving up his income-earning potential to support my career. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. They painted him as the noble artist whose creative temperament was too delicate for the corporate world, while I was the cold, calculating career woman who had benefited from his emotional labor and unwavering support. It was an infuriating distortion of reality, but legally it had teeth. They wanted a sizable lump sum and substantial monthly payments for an indefinite period. He truly believed he was going to walk away with a lifetime pass to do absolutely nothing while I paid the bills. So that's the situation I was in. Faced with a legal battle that threatened to erase a decade of my hard work and sacrifice, and knowing that the man I had loved was perfectly happy to destroy my financial future for his own selfish comfort, I had to make a choice. I could roll over and settle, ensuring a fast, painful, and very expensive exit, or I could fight back with every legal, ethical, and strategic tool at my disposal, which, given my position, were considerable. Before I tell you about the truly brutal, calculated, and ultimately satisfying plan, I put into action the kind of move that turns the tables completely in a high-stakes divorce. I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have settled just to be done with him, or would you have pressed the nuclear button? Let me know, because what I did next, nobody saw coming. I pressed the nuclear button. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to redefine the financial narrative of our marriage. My attorney was brilliant and loved a good fight, especially one against a clearly entitled opponent. The key to David's case for spousal support was proving he was either unemployable due to the marriage dynamic, or that my career benefited directly from his support. My revenge plan had two main components: the deconstruction and the reemployment. The deconstruction involved a deep dive into every single expense, gift, and financial transaction of the last 10 years, all meticulously documented because I, unlike David, kept excellent records. My team pulled up all the bank statements, credit card bills, and investment accounts. We weren't just looking at what was ours, we were itemizing what was his. That expensive vintage guitar. A personal gift, not marital property. His trips to writers' retreats, paid for entirely by my premarital investment accounts, not joint funds. More crucially, we focused on every single instance where his lack of contribution cost us money or time. We had affidavits from contractors I had to hire because he forgot to fix something, the cost of all the takeout because he was in the zone and couldn't cook, and even the lost opportunity cost of my having to cancel trips or miss meetings to handle domestic crises he created. We meticulously calculated a conservative estimate of the financial value of my unreimbursed domestic and emotional labor over the decade, juxtaposing it against the cost of supporting his lifestyle. It wasn't just about dividing assets. It was about proving the marriage was not a partnership, but an almost exclusively one-sided economic subsidy. This completely undercut his sacrifice and narrative. But the real masterstroke was the reemployment. His lawyers claimed he couldn't get a job because he was a career artist. I disagreed. Through my extensive professional network, I confidentially reached out to a former colleague who now owned a thriving, smaller media agency. I didn't ask for a job for David. I asked for an opportunity to present itself, and I provided them with every one of David's old, decent resumes from pre-marriage, highlighting his actual, marketable skills like copy editing, basic web design, and social media management skills he had suppressed to be the tortured artist. We didn't share my plan with David. A few weeks before the critical court hearing, David started getting calls from headhunters and recruiters about amazing entry-level jobs that were perfect for his skill set. They were genuine interviews, but ones that my network had flagged as high likelihood opportunities. David, completely confused and suddenly feeling the pressure of being a divorcing man with no income, went to one interview just to appease his own lawyer. He was offered a very decent job in content management with excellent benefits. The day of the hearing was legendary. His lawyer started by laying out the case for his massive spousal support, painting the picture of the destitute, career-sacrificed artist. Then my lawyer stood up. He didn't argue the figures. He just presented two things. First, he presented our detailed financial ledger, showing that David had consumed far more marital resources than he had contributed, essentially arguing that he owed the estate money. Second, and this was the devastating blow, my lawyer presented the official, signed job offer from the media agency, complete with salary and start date, which David had received and was currently stalling on accepting. Your Honor, my lawyer said, his voice calm and lethal, Mr. Smith is not unemployable. He is simply unwilling to work, and this offer of gainful employment at a salary well above the poverty line completely negates the basis for the significant, long-term spousal support he is seeking. He is not a victim of the marriage. He is the beneficiary of his own choices. David's face went from smug confidence to a sickly gray. His own lawyer looked utterly betrayed. David hadn't even told him about the interviews, let alone the offer. The judge, seeing a clear path out of the mess, agreed. The case for significant, indefinite spousal support was dismissed outright. The final ruling was that the marital assets would be divided 50/50, as per the law, but David would receive zero spousal support, and he would have to pay his own legal fees because of his clear bad faith in trying to mislead the court about his employment potential. Furthermore, my lawyer fought tooth and nail and won the right for me to keep the house, contingent on buying out David's half of the equity over a shorter period, preventing him from forcing a sale and maximizing my tax position. The aftermath was exactly what he deserved. David was forced to accept that content management job, the one I indirectly helped him get because he had no savings and his lawyer's bills were mounting. He went from living a life of leisure in a beautiful home to being a junior content associate, working 40 hours a week and having to find a rental apartment in a city he had come to believe he owned. The last I heard, he was struggling. He wasn't bad at the job, but he hated the grind, and the reality of true, self-supported adulthood hit him like a freight train. He tried to fight the equity buyout, but without the spousal support leverage, his case was toothless. My life, however, soared. The EVP position was mine, and without the dead weight of David, I thrived. I closed the door on that entire decade, a little scarred, but standing taller and financially stronger than ever before. My revenge wasn't loud or petty. It was surgical, legal, and fundamentally economic. I simply removed his entire life support system and watched him realize he had forgotten how to stand on his own 2 feet. This story is a harsh lesson that you can't build your future on someone else's back. And if you try to exploit kindness, you better be ready for the fallout when that kindness runs out. It was painful, humiliating, and exhausting, but winning that fight meant reclaiming not just my money, but my entire future and my self-respect. If there's a moral, it's this: never underestimate the woman who has been footing the bill and doing all the work. She's the one who knows how the whole system is built, and she's the only one who knows how to tear it down. Like this video if you were on my side in this truly unbelievable battle. Subscribe for more stories just like this one, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Tell me if you think I went too far. I'll see you all in the next story.